Greetings, Romies, and welcome to WromComms, the podcast sharing the joy of sim racing and motorsports. Welcome, thanks for stopping by. I am Serta, and I will be the host today because it seems that our own Cody is still asleep. I mean, it's 8:19 a.m. for him, so he gets a pass because who wants to be talking in a podcast at 8 in the morning? I mean, come on. So yeah, this time and until Cody comes in, snows in, out from Slumberland, it's gonna be me and Ike. How are you, Ike?
I'm doing absolutely fine. I was up and raring to go at 8 o'clock this morning. The joys of working Saturdays, it's not fun. It's not fun. Hopefully, you'll be able to listen to us at work, though.
Or on your way to work, or back from work, or while you're doing, I don't know, sim racing, for example. So...
I did see a comment on one of our previous podcasts that I think it was either racing or it was on Euro Truck. Give me a second and I'll find it.
I think racing.
I'm pretty sure it was racing. Apparently we make the perfect background noise for racing, which I'm going to take that as an absolute positive, bearing in mind we also do commentary.
It was a compliment, I would say. Absolutely.
Yeah, totally
absolutely. So while Cody is not there, and let's see when he is there, Ike, I know that you want to talk about something quite importantly, so go ahead. What is on your mind?
So from this last month, and I feel like we need to draw more of a spotlight onto this, we did mention the Simagic M10 wheelbase being sunsetted as far as the support was concerned. And we had varying takes in our private chat, essentially based around the reason for it, the viability of it, why are these things happening? And it's a really difficult thing to try and pull apart from an external perspective, but I do think that it is worth talking about because a lot of these manufacturers that we have may well come into, apart from Fanatec, Fanatec's the one exception to this because they've been around for so long, but there's going to be a point at which a lot of the sim racing hardware companies that we have who have brought products to market are going to find things that are just incompatible with a newer way of building or programming and things like that. And I think that we're going to see quite a bit of this with the newer companies to market. So it's really disappointing that the M10 is being discontinued. Simagic's attempt to soften the blow doesn't really soften it all that much.
Nope. It's just we're discontinuing this and you're getting these for a little bit cheaper, but buy our things. When
exactly.
Did the M10 come out?
M10 was a 2020 wheel.
Are you sure it was not 2018?
Yes, I know that Simagic was formed in 2018, if I remember correctly. They brought the M10 to market in 2020. I could be off on that though.
I get what you're saying because I mean SimuCube had their SimuCube 1 for a while, and then for all intents and purposes they discontinued that one. But after 3 years, I think it's much too soon, and shows that while you were engineering your first version, you were not doing it right.
I totally agree. But again, the nature of the past couple of years has meant that a lot of companies now, because I remember on a previous podcast I said if you want to see social impacts in business you need to wait 5 years. Now these are products that are being brought to market in a very, very accelerated time frame. I mean, how long has Camus been a company?
Sure, but they're not discontinuing any of their systems.
But they've not gotten to that point yet. That we're just starting to see their second generation of products being brought to market in the form of the C5, the LP8. How long is it going to be before their M15, I think it is, they call it. I can't remember their 15.
I don't know, but still, I mean, Fanatec has had their systems for ages.
Yep.
SimuCube has, I don't remember how long the SimuCube 1 was alive, but the SimuCube 2 is at least 5 years old, if not older. I would have to look it up. So what I'm saying is, if you discontinue something after 10 years, I understand. If you say,
totally.
look, we've reached a point where now we can build these systems much smaller. We don't need fans. We can produce the Newton meter in a different way. We don't need 800 watt power units. Whatever. Things move, and things move in hardware slower than in software, but still things move. If it's 10 years, I understand. And if I buy something and after 10 years I cannot use it anymore, it hurts, but whatever. I'm somebody who leases his cars for 4 years, so what do I say? On the other hand, after 3 years discontinuing your system and not even open sourcing the software for that system
That's the point.
at least bad engineering. If you want to see it differently, it's a money grab.
Yes, I absolutely understand the cynical take there, and you make a fantastic point that there is no comeback to. If you aren't using the software anymore, or if you've updated beyond the usability of the M10, open source the software, open source the firmware, allow people who want to keep using these wheels to be able to keep using the wheels. Because otherwise, these M10s, however many Simagic sold in the end, they're just scrap now. They're e-waste. And that's not that's just, there's no winners in that case.
Yeah. And it's bad engineering. I mean, come on. If you're an engineer, you always work with a system that is at 75%. Or 80%, and you leave the 20%. And if your 20% are filled up in 3 years, you haven't been working right.
Yeah. So as an engineer, the only thing that I can put forward as far as a defense is concerned is there could be some kind of alternate chip that Simagic was using for their decoder, for their management inside the wheel, that they have since found a new alternative that is cheaper, faster, better value, whatever the reasoning is. It doesn't really need...
Then you bring the, let's call it M11 with the newer chip,
Yep.
and say, oh, so the M11 has this newer chip, is better, but we're still supporting the other while we're not producing it anymore. That's completely okay. I mean, things happen, things move, but you don't discontinue after 3 years, even if your system is much better. Go ahead.
Say 5 years. But the thing is as well is that there's lots of different types of processor on the market now. You've got ARM, RISC-V, x86, x32. Nope, AMD 32, sorry. And they require so many different processes that it would make the software more bloated than it needs to be. I'm sure that's something along the lines of their reasoning is that they have outgrown this initial model that they released. That said, I totally agree with you. The way that they've done this is terrible and short-sighted and absolutely garners a cynical response from it. The better way, and you've just sparked this idea in my head, the better way to do it would be the Acertech method. Just sell new PCBs that updates the M10 hardware, because the fact a servo motor is a servo motor. You can't get that wrong. All you need to do is create new PCBs and allow the users to buy them at cost. Or these people who've had your M10 wheelbase for however long, allow them to buy these upgraded PCBs at cost, give them instructions and say, look, we can't warranty this because you might break it installing it, but you have the opportunity.
I gotta say, if I would have invested in the Simagic ecosystem, this would be the point that would be jumping out.
Yep.
I've had my SimuCube for 2 years, I think. If next year SimuCube was turning around and saying, hey, you know what, the SimuCube 2, forget it, we're not supporting it, for all intents and purposes it's bricked, I'd be noping out of SimuCube so fast. Even with the big investment that the DD system was, I would be noping so fast, I would be crossing the speed of sound.
I totally agree. I absolutely agree, and that's the other side of the coin with this particular approach that they've taken. There was a way for SimuCube to come out of this looking like a knight in shining armor for all of our...
Wait, not for SimuCube, for Simagic.
Sorry, Simagic, yes. for Simagic, there was an opportunity here for Simagic to come out of here looking like knights in shining armor, essentially coming clean and saying, look, we used a different process for this. It was one of our first products. We've got this new PCB that fits into the form factor, updates the M10 wheel to an M10R, M10 Plus, and whatever, who cares? Or just exchange it. You send 10 back for cost, and then they do the upgrade and send it back to you, or send someone else's that they've already done the conversion on, or something like that. There's so many different ways they could have come out of this looking like heroes, and they've taken the easiest but the least socially sensible. And as you just said, if I was a Simagic user, I would be gone. If I had the money to throw at an M10, I would just sell it while I can, hoping to pick up on someone's ignorance, and then go out and buy a Fanatec wheel and base, because I know that that's not going to happen again. And I guarantee after this news, or after this takes effect, we are going to see Fanatec seeing an uptick in business, if that's even possible at this point.
With the new prices that they're using right now?
Oh, 100%.
Quite possible.
Yeah, no, well, 100%. It'll be, so I can't remember when they're stopping support of the M10. Effective immediately was the software.
Okay.
How long is it going to work after that?
It's going to work for a long while, because it gets the information from the telemetry and converts it into a force feedback signal. So from that side, it's going to be working for a while. It's just not going to be updated. So if, I don't know, Reza, who are always finding new bugs and correcting new bugs, now comes with a much better way of doing the telemetry, you're not going to be able to use that on your Simagic M10, because the software that sends the signals to the wheel is not going to translate them in the right way.
Agreed. I totally agree.
But of course, your Assetto Corsa is going to continue working, because Kunos is not going to change anything in Assetto Corsa ever again.
Yeah, it's another one of those things that we're not going to start seeing the real impact for a year or so. Because we've got Rennsport coming out of beta. I guarantee Simagic don't have any data for that yet. We've got Assetto Corsa 2 coming slated for next year. We've got GT Revival coming out at some point. None of that has public data at the moment. Pardon?
Pista Motorsports, that's this Argentinian company that is going to do Argentinian tracks and cars.
And you reminded me, we also have the mainstream ones like Forza Motorsport, Forza Horizon 6 when it comes out. We've got Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown coming out soon. There's a new crew game on the way.
EA Sports, the Crew Motorsports, I think, or the Crew Garage.
Yeah, something.
WRC is gonna be presented on the 5th or 6th. They're gonna start their marketing blitz with telling us how much better EA Sports WRC is gonna be compared to anything that has ever been before, because we're EA Sports. We make things better by micromanagement. No, micropayment. That's the word.
Micropayments, that's the one, yeah. So I do actually have, again, a very small aside. I do have the slightest bit of hope for WRC, because they've now taken on the people who made Dirt Rally, so they might be able to make something slightly better.
It's EA Sports. Have you ever seen EA doing anything that they took slightly better? They're like Disney. They buy Marvel and run it into the ground. They buy Star Wars and run it into the ground. They buy Pixar and run it into the ground. So their EA Sports and Disney are two birds of a feather. So yeah. But coming back to Simagic, the way they worded their information to the customers, and I'm being extremely sarcastic and cynical here, I know. It was like my cousin, who until now had been doing the software, has gone work for, I don't know, Huawei, and nobody else is able to understand the Visual Basic code that he was using. So we're screwed, and because we're screwed, you're screwed too. Bye.
Yes, exactly. And the other half of it, obviously, is the side of expressing that all of your customers have the disposable income after 2 years of being stuck inside to splash out on a new wheelbase. This is going to speak to personal experience for just a second, but I haven't had disposable income to put towards sim racing in literally 3 years.
Most of the people in this world don't.
Exactly. I know that I'm not going to be a unique stance. That's going to be something that is a shared experience. And to have that come out of a hardware developer while everyone else is cutting their prices to the point where I'm pretty sure they're starting to take losses now, it's a bit deaf, I think is the best way to put it.
So my recommendation, my very personal recommendation to anyone who has the M10, don't take the update. Run, don't walk in the opposite direction. You don't have to go fanatic. I mean, I understand what you're saying. Fanatic with the new prices are slashing it. Fanatic has not only positive sides, but you know that from the engineering side, Fanatic does good work.
Yeah, exactly. My gripe with Fanatec has only ever been with regards to how closed their ecosystem is. I want to be able to make my own wheel. I want to be able to make wheels for friends. I want to be able to make additions and things that you can't really put into the Fanatec ecosystem.
They've learned from Apple.
Yes, exactly. But the thing is that they're also making money hand over fist because of it.
They've learned from Apple.
Exactly. I'm clearly of a minority in that regard, and I've made peace with that. I'm fine with that. I'll just not take my money to Fanatec. But if you want a direct drive wheel and you don't care about having any kind of open source or being able to mod your kit like I do, the CSL DD bundle is the best value that you're going to get anywhere on the internet. I've found you can get now the Fanatec, the basic pedals and wheel and CSL DD base for £329 or £350, which is, I mean, obviously that's before import tax and things like that. But there are listings on Facebook for second-hand Logitech wheels and Thrustmaster T150s that are that much, and it's like I either pay £350 for this, or I pay £350 plus 20% for a CSL DD, which is going to give just a game-changing experience.
Yeah, absolutely. No contradiction from me. Fanatic are slashing it with those prices. Exactly. Maybe they have too much of it laying around. Maybe when they ordered all the pieces, they didn't expect the economy to slow down or the inflation to go up so much. In any case, they're going down with the prices in a way that Logitech can, for all intents and purposes, stop building wheels as well as Thrustmaster.
Yeah, exactly. As many people have said at this point, most notably within my team, there's literally no point of buying a Logitech or a Thrustmaster wheel first or second hand anymore. If you've been saving up to get one and you can't get one secondhand on Facebook or eBay for a reasonable price, save for a little bit longer and get yourself in onto a direct drive wheel. It won't make you faster, but it'll help you learn so much quicker.
Yeah, and it's DD is more sensible. You feel more.
Yeah, and you don't need to use all of the torque that the wheel offers. You don't need to have it turned up full. However, I did have a conversation with someone who has a direct drive wheel, and they said they always run it at full, but they run the detail in the game at next to 0, and that's how they get their torque scaling. So essentially what happens is you're getting the realistic amount of feedback, but the wheel will never peak. Even if you hit a wall or anything like that, you're always going to get the absolute best feedback, which is a really good move, I think.
Absolutely. Moving on, I would like to talk about a game changer with regards to Automobilista 2. And I'm not going to talk about Automobilista 2 directly.
I was going to say, you're going to talk about the 1.5 update, are we?
Yeah, not again. We did that. By the way, they found again a bug, and the 1.5.6 or whatever is going to be a slight game changer all over again, because Reza. But let's not go there. I don't have the details yet. I just have the information that there's something cooking. No. I'm talking about the Automobilista 2 Content Manager. And what is that? The Automobilista 2 Content Manager is a very easy way to add mods to Automobilista 2.
Yes, I watched the video.
You just take the archive, you drop the archive into the Automobilista 2 Content Manager, and if the archive is halfway well built, that's all you have to do. Now, one of the points that Automobilista 2 had as an issue was that it was quite complicated to have mods. Mods came late. And Reza had said, we're not going to support mods. We're not going to do anything against mods, but we're not going to support mods, which is fine. They've changed their stance since then. But the thing was also the couple of mods that were there were quite complicated. You needed the right boot files. Then you had to add them with a software that came out when the dinosaurs roamed the earth and blah, 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 blah. Now you just take, and it's not only mods, it's also liveries and whatever. You just take the archive, drop it into Automobilista 2 Content Manager, and presto, the mod is in the sim, and you can raise whatever with Automobilista 2. We're seeing an uptick of mod makers and mods for Automobilista 2 for the last month and a half, because Automobilista 2 Content Manager existed for a long while, but it was all command line oriented and it was a hassle for most of the people. So now it has a graphic user interface which has to evolve, but what that means is if there's a reason Assetto Corsa is still alive almost 10 years since it came out, it's because there's still a ton and a half of mods that are there for Assetto Corsa and that are coming out. There's, of course, also somebody like Ilya building the CSP that now even changes up to a point the physics of the sim and the way the AI works. Still,
nice.
Mods are keeping Assetto Corsa quite alive. Mods are gonna move Automobilista 2 even when Reza stops working on it, and I don't see that happening soon, but anyway, are gonna keep that sim, which for me has at the moment the best physics all around. And yes, I'm gonna get flack from the R Factor 2 people, but that's the way I see it. Mods are gonna keep Automobilista 2 alive even when Reza stops, and mods are gonna enhance the attractivity of Automobilista 2, I suppose manifold. I don't know by how much, but I suspect that in half a year, with a couple of must-have mods, which I expect are going to happen sooner or later, things are going to be moving. The only gripe that I have with mods in Automobilista 2 is you cannot add your own sound to the mods. You have to take the sound algorithms and files that are inside of Automobilista 2, but maybe Reza changes that in the future.
I was going to say that's only a matter of time. I think, knowing what Reza are like, they will probably start working to expose some of those directories and try and make a way for people to add extra bits and pieces. Do we have track mods for AMS2 yet?
Let me put it this way. There are no track mods that can be used officially or legally.
Yeah, that sounds right.
But there is a possibility to add tracks as mod to Automobilista 2.
Yeah. So I think that we can... I totally agree with you. And I think, was it last month or the month before, we were talking about how mods are going to be the thing that dictates whether Rennsport stands or falls.
Agreed.
The only reason why we still play Assetto, as you rightly said, I was having a discussion with one of my friends who was talking about how Assetto Corsa is so good and the rain looks so much better in Assetto Corsa than in Project Cars 2. And I said, sorry, rain? Do you mean in vanilla Assetto Corsa? Rain? Yeah. And they said, oh, no. Obviously, it's with the CSP patch. Okay, so you're not describing Assetto Corsa, you're describing a mod which was community made. Of course it's going to look better. It was made more recently in a very well-known engine.
Oh yeah, from a very, very clever developer.
Exactly. I don't understand why more developers don't take on really talented modders, like the maker of CSP, like with the creator of AMS2CM.
Yeah. So one thing, you maybe remember that there was this Raider for AMS2, like the Helicorsa mod, remember?
Oh, yeah, I remember, yes, yeah.
So now there is a Raider inside of Automobilista 2. Imagine who did that.
Yes. Okay,
and
that makes a lot of sense.
Imagine who is part of Reza already since I think half a year or something like that. And I'm not sure because nobody's talking, but I get the feeling that Ilya's income doesn't come all from CSP. It's a mix of a gut feeling and some rumors that I've heard that Ilya is working on Assetto Corsa 2.
Oh, that's going to be interesting.
I'm not stating that this is the case. I'm saying that I've heard something and my gut feeling tells me that this something could be correct.
Yes. Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. As I say, to me it doesn't make sense that we have all of these incredibly talented community members that create incredible mods which range from the eventful to the utterly wacky, and the first party developers aren't looking at that and going, yeah, we need that kind of talent on this team. If not the talent, the out of the box thinking.
Let's not forget, Reza were mod makers. So if there is somebody who knows that people who tinker with your software are people who you want to have quite close tinkering from inside, and I mean, Kunos got the person who did Helicorsa and the rating system for Assetto Corsa, got him into the team of Assetto Corsa Competizione. I don't know if he's still within Kunos and is working on Assetto Corsa 2, but Kunos is also known for finding talent and getting them to work. And if you're halfway intelligent as a boss, so not EA, you go and get the people who have been able to do magic with your software from the outside.
Yep.
Get them to sign an NDA and get them under contract, and get them all the information so that they can do their magic tenfold from the inside.
Yeah, exactly. There was I can't remember who it was. I remember hearing in an interview once that as a boss and a manager, you always want to be the dumbest person in the room. And if you don't have that attitude, then you're not a good manager.
Yeah, absolutely. As somebody who spent most of his life managing teams and people, I agree wholeheartedly. It
may actually have been you.
You want the people that are working with you to be one step ahead of you. Yeah. Because you try to be one step ahead of your customer. Therefore, the people who are developing are 2 steps ahead of the customer. And then when you come out with something, your customers are going to love it because they're like, how can you read my mind? How were you able to read my mind half a year ago when you started developing this?
Yes.
So,
exactly.
Absolutely. Absolutely, that's what you want. But again, coming back to what I was saying, Automobilista 2 Content Manager is not yet at the level of the Assetto Corsa Content Manager, but with regards of being able to mod Automobilista 2 with new cars and tracks and put your liveries and a lot of other things that already now are allowed with Automobilista 2 liveries being just one example, is a game changer. It's just, as I said, we've seen an uptick of people developing mods, and we're going to see more and more the more people realize how easy it is to install mods on Automobilista 2. And that's going to take Automobilista 2, the way it did for Assetto Corsa, the way it did for R Factor 2, a long longevity.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree. And hopefully we'll be able to watch it grow and expand exponentially as well, because obviously that's going to make that modders see that they're getting attention, because let's face it, that's all modders are doing it for. They're doing it for the love of it, and so that other people can enjoy it. And if it's made easier for other people to enjoy it, then there's going to be more modders looking to AMS2 and going, maybe we can look into that.
Patrons help us bring better product reviews and sim racing news. Become our hero by becoming a patron at patreon.com/RomRom. Amongst other perks, becoming a patron will fix your name for posterity like this, but you'll also be able to participate in our podcast recording, get to know what we plan and what we're doing, and we'll be able to take part in our decisions. A big thank you to our patrons and members. If you come here often, please consider subscribing.
Speaking of modding though, what do you think of the changes that Rennsport have been making? We both have beta keys, so it is only Cody who is not part of the cool club.
And anyway, he's sleeping.
Yep, and while he's away, let's talk about Rennsport so he doesn't get jealous.
So, it's a closed beta for a reason. It's an open closed beta, so to speak, because they've been handing out these keys also to generate some buzz, which is a fair way to do it. You notice that they're doing something. I think the force feedback is not there yet, by far not, but there is something more there. Now, they published also the Praga, I suppose, to make clear we are not yet another GT3 sim. And okay, they had this figure of 8. What I haven't checked that much yet is damage system. I would say that you are better able to talk about it, but the force feedback is there, so that's a plus. But it still has a long way to go. It reminded me very much of the force feedback when Automobilista 2 first came out in beta. Like the moment that we were allowed to talk about Automobilista 2's software, the force feedback was not there yet. You noticed that there were physics behind that, but that the force feedback was not yet able to translate those physics into wheel motion and wheel feel that made you know what your car was doing. So they're at that level, and it's not a bad level. It's just one step that they're doing. Other than that, at the moment, neither overwhelmed nor underwhelmed. It's the way software development goes. You do iterations, you bring things out, and so on. I am a little bit surprised that they are doing esport races with that level of force feedback. On the other hand, I know that some professional esport drivers turn off force feedback completely.
Yeah, they're running with ESL R1 because they have the money to throw at ESL to get them to host these competitions. And it's doing the job. It really is. Everyone's talking about it. There's dedicated chats in the Rennsport Discord, which is literally just people complaining about not being able to get a beta key yet. It's working. They have eyes on them. What they need to do now is follow through with that. And I have a hunch and a theory, and I have nothing to back this on other than the feel that I got both when I first flat spotted the Praga's tires when I was testing. It's what I was trying to do. It wasn't an accident. I did it on purpose. But there's two things that point to this given hunch. One was the flat spots, and two was how it behaved when I got some damage on the car. I think that they are using some kind of iteration of the ISI engine as their basis.
Okay.
It feels like R Factor 2. It looks like Assetto Corsa because it's made in Unreal 5. That's, you can't get away from... from Competizione. You can't get away from the particular vignette that you get and the veneer that the screen has. However, the handling is pure R Factor, AMS, iRacing.
Okay.
But as you say, it's that very, very early. They've clearly not dialed it in properly. There's clearly a lot of gaps that they need to fill. The best thing to do is to drive the Porsches, because obviously Porsche is funding it so they have all the internal data. If you drive that 911, that's the best that you're going to get at the moment, and it is very, very good, and has the playfulness that the Porsche has in real life.
And just to be clear, I personally don't expect them to be farther than that. It's not that I'm saying, oh my god, the force feedback is still at its infancy. I'm like, the force feedback is at its infancy, and I'm not surprised because the software is in a closed beta. They're working on it, and there are, I suppose, having more people working on the ESL side, on the multiplayer esports racing side, than on the force feedback, which is okay for me. So they have their priorities, and the force feedback is at a certain level, and that's okay by me.
Yeah, I have also, in the interim between the last podcast, actually looked into making liveries for Rennsport as well. Is interesting. It uses an R-Factor2-esque skinning system. So you have one PNG file that gives you the actual images that you'll see, and then you have a second PNG layer that puts the shaders on. So if you want gloss or metallic or chrome, or if you want the panel to be illuminated, you use different primary colors to achieve that. And I think, once again, everything's common sense with Rennsport. Everything that they are saying makes sense, and they seem to be doing it in a really sensible way. The thing that is going to make or break Rennsport for me is when they ungray the box for the store. Because when we see the store for the first time, that's going to completely change how people view that game.
Yeah, agreed.
And of course, the monetization strategy. I sincerely hope that they give a World of Warcraft or Race Room offering. So
or
either
EVE
you can, or yes, World of Warcraft, EVE Online, you pay once and that's it, basically.
No, okay.
No, you pay once.
No.
You pay the subscription, but you get access to everything.
Exactly.
Because that is the best of both worlds.
Yeah. Let's see how they go.
Yeah.
Because the iRacing mode would bring them money, but I think the people that would go for the iRacing mode are already invested in iRacing, and those who would not will not. So, and one thing, do you know if somebody owns the license for the ISI engine?
As far as I'm aware, it's abandonware.
Yeah, yeah, but abandonware cannot be used officially. So if you're using it in a software that you're selling, like Rennsport or Automobilista 2 or R-Factor 2, you have to have bought a license at some point. So
yes,
if it's abandonware, Rennsport are not able to use it because there is nobody who can sell them a license.
Absolutely.
So it either is not abandonware.
ISI produced ISI Motor 2 and then was licensed to Simbin. Okay, so ISI might still be a thing. For FIA GT racing game GTR, that's how old it is. It looks as though they're still licensing. So are they just licensing the engine then?
So ISI is its own company.
Yes, so Image Space Incorporated. Yes, Image Space Incorporated are still going, it looks like.
I mean, it's quite possible that they're still... Aren't they building professional simulations? Something like that?
Yeah, they're still building professional simulators. I do not see Rennsport on their list of games as yet, but there would be no reason why they would. I'm trying really hard to search live here. I don't see anything that was released since R-Factor 2.
So I know that Automobilista 2 uses the ISI engine as well as did Project Cars.
That's it? Yeah.
Because the Madness engine takes information from the ISI.
Yes, exactly.
It's quite more complicated than that. Before the Reza developers sneak up at night and murder me in my sleep, I know it's more complicated than that, but if I start explaining how complex it is, people are gonna fall asleep, and if they are listening to this pod track while driving, we don't want that.
We don't need that at all. I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if we saw Rennsport being added to the list of games when it comes out.
That's why I wanted to know how ISI would fit into the picture. So it's possible that the people from Rennsport sat together and said, Unreal 5 looked very good on Assetto Corsa Competizione. How about we go for that? And somebody else was saying, yeah, but for physics it was crap. Yeah, so let's go ISI, and then we build on top of that. Yeah, okay, let's go there. It's quite possible.
As I say, I have no evidence of that whatsoever. It is just a hunch, and if it turns out to be true, then I am waiting with even more bated breath as to see to see how the monetization works, because an Unreal 5 R Factor 2 is exactly what sim racing needs at the moment. Especially if they angle it towards mods as much as their early material has been proposing. Oh boy, yeah, we could very well be looking at, again, a golden age of sim racing.
In any case, the once part of the team, Cody, who is still in Slumberland, asked last month for our listeners, our viewers, to say which would be their favorite track and car combination. And then we had Punta Taco Simuladores, who is a very avid listener and commentator, saying GT1 in Spa or Brands Hatch.
See, they're all very, very good.
I understand Spa, but Brands Hatch, it's quite curvy. Like, there is no way to use the whole GT1 experience in Brands Hatch. I'm not dissing Brands Hatch. It's an excellent track, either in the indie version or in the long version. It's a fantastic track, but having a GT1 on there, somehow, would you ever get to 6th gear?
Oh no, not at all. The highest you'd get would be 5th gear up, and that would be going up the GP loop. But that is, I think, I'm absolutely with Punta here, because I think that so much of the GT1 era had nothing to do with top speed and everything to do with the H-pattern shifter and far too much horsepower.
Okay. Yeah.
So, again, going from high 4th gear, possibly 5th gear, coming down into Paddock Hill Bend and having to get on the brakes, on the clutch, blip the throttle down into 3rd gear, and then get the car turned in as you go across that bump where the pit exit is. That on its own is exhilarating enough to make it worth the price of entry.
You need an extra pair of legs and hands.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There's no good way of being... There's no fast way of getting a GT1 car through Paddock Hill Bend. You are just surviving. And then once you've survived that, you've only just gotten down through the dip, felt that compression, possibly if you've got the rig for it. And then you've got to get on the brakes for druids. And that is, again, so much power in a manual gearbox and a H-pattern shifter. I couldn't imagine many things more fun than that.
And the thing is, if you don't take care in a GT1, when you are downshifting, you're going to get into downshift oversteer.
Yep. Which you can also use as well, but...
Sure, but then you would be a much cleverer driver than I normally am. With some cars, I'm able to use that, but normally I'm not. Normally, downshift oversteer means bye-bye for me. But yeah, with some of the cars, I'm able to use downshift oversteer to do nice things to the turning of the car. Yes, yeah. Okay, so what would be your favorite car and
I was going to say, mine's really difficult. I have so many. Something that I have been doing with the AMS 2cc coming up and me having to manage a team as one of the entrants was running through different tracks that we had as options. And if you have never, and if you haven't, why not? Go and do it now. If you have never taken anything around the Alton Park Grand Prix circuit without the chicanes on the back straight, it's fantastic. GT3 cars are 200 kilometers per hour coming down to Knickerbrook, which is a genuinely, you have to think about it, corner down from 5th or 6th gear down to 3rd gear. So it's a really, really big braking zone by the time you get there. But car combination at that point doesn't matter, I've got to be honest. I was doing it in the DTM cars because, again, testing. DTM cars screaming down towards Knickerbrook at I think it was getting towards 250, again, with a H shifter. Terrifying prospect, absolutely fantastic, would recommend to anyone. But for real life conditions, though, I wish beyond all other things that Silverstone would bring back the bridge circuit variation of the track. I was running it the other night in our Factor 2 through one of the mods, and it doesn't matter. Again, it doesn't matter what car you're doing. It doesn't matter whether it's got a ridiculous amount of horsepower or it has a boatload of downforce. It's a fantastic series of corners where, for those of you who aren't aware, it was the track layout from 1991 to 1994, I think. But it's so good, flowed so well, and having the stow into the two chicanes and then being able to run into the final bridge section. I've done it in goodness knows how many sims and how many different cars at this point. Early 90s Formula 1 cars, screaming V10s, not all that much downforce, but just an absolute boot full of power. Coming under the bridge flat and then breaking into the final three corners. Yeah, goosebumps. How about yourself?
So anybody who has been following some of the videos that we've made, and when I sit down at Automobilista 2, will know that I'm quite partial driving Buenos Aires.
Yeah.
And I like to drive the most complex and I suppose the longest configuration. And one thing that is lovely to drive there is a classic Mini. The Mini JWC, the newest, is fun, but driving a classic Mini or any of the other 70s car that they have in Automobilista 2 is a lot of fun because you almost have no help in getting those cars through all those curve combinations that Buenos Aires has. So I'm quite partial to that. Another thing that I love a lot, it's a long while ago that we tested Panama, the Panama mod for Assetto Corsa.
Right, yep. Yeah.
Panama is such a complex circuit. It's the only circuit there is in the whole country.
Yeah.
It's such a complex circuit. It's got ups, downs, curves, and I drove that with a BMW GT3 and it was enormous fun. I have never touched it again because life comes in between.
Yes.
But I wouldn't be surprised if something like a Mini or what's it called, Formula Student or something like that, small, maybe a Clio or something like that, if those cars would be incredible fun to drive on there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something that we need to have some level of discussion about at some point. Is smaller cars make for better racing. Small, slow cars make for the best racing and the most fun racing as well. I think that's something that has been lost very much so in modern times. I've been saying now for, I think, the past couple of years, ever since they really, really slowed down the LMP2 cars, that they should just take the LMP3 cars, give them 100 extra horsepower to allow them to get away from GT3 cars, and then call them the new LMP2 class. Because the cars are so small, you can fit them 3 and 4 wide across the track. I think that there's an argument to be made that the smaller and slower we can make cars, the better the racing is going to be.
And if you like different car and track combinations, don't forget to turn your computer on and to turn it to your favorite channel. That's us, of course, because the Automobilista 2 Community Cup shows every race a different track and car combination chosen by the different communities choosing their car and track combination, and it's going to be 8 different track and car combinations, all of which can be found in Automobilista 2.
Not the last of the commentary that you'll see from us. We're obviously working with lots of different communities, so keep your eyes peeled on WromComms for other series coming up. You'll hear about it probably first with one of us going off on a idle tangent about what's coming up. We've got lots to look forwards to.
This was our favorite track and car combination. Man, English words. I'm going to set up the question for the next time because I want to. What are your top 3 racing movies of all time? What are your top 3 racing movies of all time? No matter where. They don't have to be Hollywood movies. I don't know if there are any Bollywood racing movies where in the middle of the race they stop, sing and dance and then continue the race. That would be very Bollywood. Yep. I don't know if there are any Nollywood movies, racing movies, but in any case, your favorite top 3 racing movies of all time?
That's going to be a hard one. Can we count Fast and Furious in that?
We can count anything. Anything. One of the movies that I have in my head, only a couple of people will know, and only a couple of people will go, oh yes, that's mine too. So yes, anything that has anything racing.
Yes, we'll take that.
But it's gotta be a movie that is concentrated on the racing, not something like Star Wars where they race their.
They do pod racing, yeah.
Yeah, but that's only just an aside in the movie. No. It's gotta be a racing movie.
I think I get the indication. I'm gonna have to think about that because there's not that many racing movies. Go
to IMDb and you're gonna find a lot of them.
Oh, okay. I'll go and search because I may not have considered it.
I'm pretty sure you're gonna go. Oh, of course. Oh,
yes, exactly.
Yes, yeah, I had forgotten that one. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The Italian Job was Racing the Police, right?
Yeah. Would that be a racing movie or would that
no,
be
it's rather, a heist movie.
Yeah, I'd say so. But hey, so
if you can make the argument for it,
yeah, exactly. We'll accept it because there's so many good and so many bad racing movies out there. Go ahead and tell us what your top 3 are.
Excellent. I am not a movie person. So this is going to be an interesting one, finding 3. So you need to present your reasoning to the class. Prove that this is a racing film.
Exactly.
PTSD from maths questions.
Anyway, do you have any famous last words, IK?
No. I hope by the time that you hear this, it'll be Thursday and we will have had the first round of the Community Cup. So if you haven't, go and watch that because I promise you it's going to be fantastic. Even without the bugs that AMS2 presents sometimes, it's going to be fantastic. And with the bugs...
Ginettas on Road America.
Ginetta G55 Super Cup, so slightly more powerful than the GT4 versions, around Road America. It is going to be a slipstream fest.
Big slidey boys.
That too. Other than that, I hope that everybody has a fantastic month until we get to speak again like this. And remember to look after yourselves and everybody around you because this world is getting worse by the day. And there's only so much that we can do in our little sim racing podcast. So look after each other and be good to everyone.
And we're going to go wake Cody somehow.
And
anyway,
we're going to go and wake Cody up.
Subscribe so you don't miss the next episode if you aren't subscribed yet. And until the next time, save fuel, collect pickup, and we'll see each other on the podium.
Bye-bye.